everyone, my name is Luna and I'm here to fill you in on everything that happens in Critical Role, including the spooky world of Candela Obscura. Today we're talking about episode 2, Ravage of Red Lamp. We find ourselves in Red Lamp, the night district of New Fair, which is the home to bars, clubs, and brothels. In the Getaway Grand Hotel, we meet a woman called Onette Ferris, a primacy chamberwoman, meaning that she's sort of involved in the governance of New Fair. With her is a younger man, Wayland Threed, in his 20s, a musician that we later learn Onette has been having an affair with. As they get down to it,
the sounds of pleasure begin to take the night beyond this window. And then screams. Two voices screaming shatter the night.
Well, that was terrifying, but I gotta say, I love this TV-esque introduction that we get to the show, sort of, seeing things outside of the character's perspective. It reminds me of like old X-Files episodes where, it always starts with seeing an incident and then we sort of see the investigation play out through the episode. It's been a number of weeks since the events of episode 1, and Auggie is hanging out at the Gilded Rainbow, chatting with Reggie, the owner of the bookshop.
Morning, Reggie.
Good morning, Reggie. What's going on?
I totally did. Sorry, that was my brain. So I'd like to say good morning to myself as well sometimes. Keep me on edge. Good morning.
I was gonna say, I thought you were correcting me or something. I'm gonna say hello.
No, you're good.
Wait,
good morning to you as well, Auggie. Glad we're both present.
As they are chatting, Lightkeeper Alexandra arrives and calls together the circle of the Vassal and the Veil. Once they all gather, she gives them their assignment: investigate the disappearance of Onette Ferris. Witnesses saw a massive beast-like figure moving from the scene in the shadows. Ooh, spooky, spooky. The Lightkeeper explains that Onette is involved in the trade industry of New Fair and has made a number of enemies and rivals through her exploits, so there is a possibility that this is a politically motivated attack, a theory which is bolstered later in the episode when they find evidence suggesting an organization called the Red Hand was involved, but we'll talk about them a little bit more later. As with their last case, time is of the essence as the Periphery, the police force, are already on the scene of the crime. With their assignment given, the group get ready to begin, although Arlo asks,
"Do you have anything that will defeat shadow beasts on you?"
She kind of leans back in her pocket, thinks for a second, pulls out a small, looks like a corked vial of glass. The interior of it kind of shakes a little bit, and it looks almost like it has a thick, syrupy, like molasses-like dark liquid on the inside that kind of coats the interior of the glass.
I mean, I guess ask and you shall receive, right? The group discuss the Chamberwoman and why she may have been at the Getaway Grand, surmising that perhaps she has a family at home that she wishes to keep her activities private from, but Arlo also offers this explanation.
Or maybe she has a hard time finding anyone to be intimate with. Maybe she's very shy in her everyday life, and she looks forward to finding someone who will let her be herself for a moment.
I can't help but feel she may have been talking about herself in this moment, and we do later learn that Arlo once had a fiancé called Eddie, who may have been that special person for her. Aww. They head to the hotel where they meet an officer of the Periphery at the front door. Charlotte approaches him and says that they're there for a business meeting, but unfortunately Anjali rolls double ones on her persuasion roll, making this a failure. Or her sway roll is actually what it's called. Luckily, at least there isn't a critical failure in the dice mechanics, so, that's something. The guard just tells them that they'll be allowed in an hour, so they plan to return later. In the meantime, they head around the back of the hotel where they see the broken window of the Chamberwoman's room above them and find shards of glass on the street. There is also an unhoused person there that Auggie speaks with called Terry, and he is very startled and nervous, especially with the presence of a Periphery officer on a fire escape above. He tells Auggie that last night he was here with 2 others, Enom and Skitty, and they heard a large crash, saw some strange creature, and Enom disappeared. He tells them where they can find Skitty to ask him more details. Auggie then offers Terry his bed back at the Gilded Rainbow for somewhere to rest up for the day. While this conversation is happening, Howard heads over to the glass pieces to investigate them.
And you're kind of going through the...
Waiting. How long have you been?
A game and a half.
Hell yeah.
He notices that there is no blood, but there is some kind of grey, slimy flesh. Ew. That twitches? Ew. This shakes Howard and he takes a brain bleed. Despite that, he decides to pick it up and it starts crawling up his finger.
And as you look, it's pushing into your skin. It's pushing into your hand.
Oh, it's a unique sensation.
Pull out my jackknife and just start, without touching it, start to try to carve it off the finger part.
Okay, so yeah, like maybe don't touch it again, please. They gather up the other fleshy strip in their bleed containment unit and the others chastise him for taking such a risk. They then head off and find Skitty in a bar, cradling a drink and looking very shaken. Auggie talks to him and just like Terry, he is very scared and upset. Auggie asks what he saw and he describes seeing the creature.
It was wrapped in torn cloth and grime. It looked like it was just awful nightmare of a thing. It had so many arms, like...
The others join Skitty and Auggie at the table and ask a few more questions, including what Enon looks like and about Skitty's involvement in the war. The war they are referencing is the Great War, a 6-year-long war with Otherware, which Hale finally managed to win thanks to the invention of electricity, but not before a lot of death and displacement. While they're talking with Skitty, they notice that he is scratching a lot and then he has a dark gash. Howard examines it and doesn't notice any movement under the skin, which is good, I guess. Charlie then sends him to the site unseen to get some medical treatment from a doctor there. I don't know if it's ever confirmed, but I don't think he did have any flesh worms in him. We didn't really learn what would happen if someone got embedded with one of these. I have a feeling that maybe it might have transformed them into another of the creatures that they encounter. I don't know, let me know what you think in the comments. They head back to the getaway grand and the periphery officer is gone from the front, so they're able to go inside. However, at the front of Onette's room on the 6th floor, there is another officer guarding the door. This time Arlo decides to try and distract him and she sort of walks in front of him and just like falls in front like she has the vapors, like, oh no. And it works and the officer rushes off to get her some water. This provides cover for the others to sneak into the room. But they did not account for a periphery captain just being inside the room interviewing a woman. The captain is like, who are you? What are you doing in here? And Charlotte and Howard give the captain their real names. I was screaming at my screen during this moment, like, come up with a fake name, please. They keep giving their real names to everybody and like, you know, it's a city, sure, but it won't be that hard to find them, especially given what happens next.
I am going to reach into my pocket where I carry my hand weapon, which is just a set of brass knuckles in my pocket.
Okay.
And I'm gonna put them in my pocket as I reach out to shake his hand.
Oh, God.
Oh, he's next.
Hello, Professor Howard Margrave. Nice to meet you.
I'm Chief Terran Rokes of the Periphery.
Excellent. And I am going.
Don't do it. Please don't do it.
I am going to
said
pull
no.
my hand out of my pocket.
We said no.
And I'm going to try to pull one right between his eyes.
Okay. Yes,
Well,
you
you
do.
deserve it.
I definitely deserve it.
Terrible idea.
Oh, good.
Oh, let's go.
That is 2 6s.
2 6s. All right. So 2 6s, I'm going to consider that as a critical success, which means you get a little fun on top there.
I'm almost crying.
And
Tell me I walk in right as
the other hand's still behind his back, and then there's this moment of he kind of looks at you with a curious glance, aware of the strange change in demeanor as you lift it from your pocket. He begins.
slowly.
And the punch,
is like
the
this.
punch isn't like an Indiana Jones punch. He just kind of goes, boink, and right between the eyes.
So the reason I think the players were freaking out so much in this moment is that this game has such a different vibe to D&D, where, you know, you're getting into fights all the time. The game is built to fight things, whereas this is not a game built for that. And there are real, you know, really dangerous consequences for getting into fights. Like we saw later in the episode, they don't have that many, like, hit points that they can soak damage with. It's really easy for them to get knocked out because they're just like regular humans. They're not, you know, these kind of heroic adventurers like we see in D&D. It definitely adds a really different kind of layer and a different vibe to the encounters. So the woman in the room is freaking out, understandably, and they try and calm her down while Arlo uses her bleed detector, finding that there is a lot of bleed residue in the room. Charlie also has a look around, but most of the evidence has already been taken by the periphery. She does, however, find a golden necklace chain by a broken armoire. That necklace chain that detail will come back later. They talk to the woman here whose name is Kara, and she is Onette's assistant. She doesn't really want to talk to them, but she does give them the name of Onette's husband, Aaron Ferris, and it's here that we learn that Arlo actually knows the Ferrises. Kara says that they shouldn't go and see Aaron because she doesn't want him to find out about the affair before she sort of leaves in a rush, stressed out by all of their questions. As she does so, the periphery officer who left to get Arlo some water returns. They try and continue the ruse with Charlie sort of pretending like, you know, they brought Arlo to the wrong room and Auggie pretending like they found the captain knocked out whilst also swiping the captain's badge. The officer is like, what?
Burn those drives, y'all.
Hey, I got 6.
You got a 6. He goes,
Excellent,
he
excellent.
goes, Oh, goodness. I need to make sure he's all right. And there's like patting him too.
So they just sort of talk at him while they hurriedly make their exit. As they exit, they notice 3 members of the OUP arrive, including the one that interviewed Auggie in episode 1 of Candela Obscura, Aaron Weimar. As a little refresher, the OUP stands for the Office of Unexplained Phenomena, and it is a branch of the periphery known for covering up incidents like this and is often at odds with Candela Obscura. The Circle of the Vassal and the Veil... You know what, that name is just like too long to say. I'm just gonna say V&V. All right, so V&V check the newspaper and see that there are a number of performances happening in town, including one by Onette's companion, Wayland, at the Revisionary, a restaurant in the Varnish, because they sort of initially thought there was a musical connection to the creature, which we don't really see play out, but it does help them find some details here. They decide to head there, but on the way, they notice that they're being followed by an OUP member. They pick up their pace and head towards a cable car line, quickly hopping on. The OUP tail starts to run after the cable car, like Terminator style, and is about to jump on. Charlie then pulls some flash powder from her pocket since she is a magician, and she throws it down onto the wheels. Unfortunately though, Anjuli rolls very badly and the flash powder doesn't dissuade the OUP tail, and he does jump onto the cable car.
Don't worry about it. Continue your business. I'm just here to keep an eye.
Their rolls this game were so bad. Like, they were just rolling so bad the whole time. With the OUP band just like right there, V&V decide to try and split up and meet up later at the restaurant. Arlo then hops off, and then a short moment later, Howard hops off, and then Auggie after that. But the OUP member is really only interested in Charlotte. She gets off the cable car and heads to a church, going in the confessional, while the OUP tail just sort of waits right outside. Inside the confessional, she asks the priest for help, saying that she doesn't know this man and she's scared. The priest lets her know that there is a back entrance that she can get out of, and he shoos the OUP man out of the church. She then gives the priest a large donation on the way out, and having lost her tail, heads to the Revisionary where she meets with the others. They speak with the manager there and learn that Wayland was supposed to be playing tonight, but the band has cancelled for the foreseeable future.
It's the one named Kara.
Yes. Kara, what's her last name?
Beltman.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. She did it. All right, so, piece of trash.
It is indeed very suspicious that she wouldn't mention that she played in a band with Wayland, but I wonder if it is just because she didn't want to be implicated at all in the affair and maybe thought that Onette's husband would blame her. I don't know, I really thought that this was going to play a big part in the investigation because it seemed like such a clear, shady thing, but it didn't come up again at all. I do wonder if Matt had planned to involve her somehow, but it just sort of never came up because of the choices that V&V made. I don't know, what do you think? Since Kara told them not to go see Onette's husband, they decide to definitely go and see him, and luckily Arlo knows where he lives. They get shown into the Ferris home, which is very fancy and well-to-do, and they meet Aaron Ferris. Arlo asks what Aaron knows about the incident, and it's clear that he and Onette have a fractured relationship. He has heard that she went missing with another man, and he is obviously not too happy about it.
We've been married for the better part of 15, 16 years, and work keeps her very busy. Doesn't come home a lot of nights because she has a lot of work to do. Emotional distance that continues to grow, like the fucking vast chasm between the two of you. And then you disappear a couple days after your anniversary. And then, it all just kind of makes sense when you put it together, right?
As they're talking, they notice bandages on Aaron's hand, and he says he has a weird infection and shows them that he has a dark black mark on his hand, which appeared a day or two ago after he and Onette went shopping for an anniversary present. He bought her an emerald necklace from the Alizarin Gallery, which is owned by Donna Ashfar. This is the second time that we've heard of Donna, because in episode 1 we learned that Donna had hired an acquaintance of Auggie's, Layla, to look for old Farron artifacts in the ruins below the city. Definitely seems like she sort of has her fingers in a lot of these sort of old Farron pies. The black mark on his hand corresponds with where he was holding the necklace, so I don't think that this is like a wormy type of creature getting to his hand, but it's probably proximity to this emerald, which we later learned contains some pretty nasty stuff. Arlo takes a look at the infection with her bleed detector.
As you kind of concentrate on it and kind of look towards it, you feel this strange, like, hunger pang in your stomach, like this sudden urge to just kind of just grab and pull his hand towards you, and you kind of like this horrible sudden urge kind of filters through you, and you pull away. And as you do, you kind of feel that bleed drift into you for just a moment as you process that it had briefly moved from his hand and spread into yours. You do take a bleed.
Ew, gross. I must say, I'm really a very squeamish person. I don't tolerate like a lot of horror or spooky things, and I definitely struggled with this episode in some sections. As they leave,
You should cut your hand off.
Oh, and then we leave.
I think that was just
Oh boy. Oh, what? Remember when I said that your directness was an asset? Perhaps just among us. Yes, perhaps just among us.
I love Arlo so much. She's just so odd. As they are walking and talking, Arlo shares some more details about her hand injury. She shares that her fiancé, Eddie, was interested in old fair relics, and one day when she went to see him, she walked in the room and he was being pulled through a portal, a thinning, and she tried to save him, but when she reached into the portal, she wasn't able to pull him out, and upon removing her hand, found it the way it is now. Charlotte is kind of shocked and intrigued by this story and seems to have a similar one, just based on her reaction in her backstory. Arlo also shares that Eddie was running with Red Hand, procurers of old fair and relics with some pretty shady ethics. His disappearance was hushed up and he's never been seen since. They arrive at the gallery, which is fairly busy with a number of people walking about, examining the paintings and sort of these replica artifacts and relics. The curator of this gallery, Donna, is mingling as well, very elegantly dressed with beautiful jewelry.
This piece here is representative of the deep annals of lost knowledge. For those that once upheld this entire society, through their own arrogance, vanished and fell to their inability to see the limits of their ambition. And let this be a lesson to all of us to guard our own limits and be well aware of how high we should climb.
The Old Fair and arrogance that she's referring to is the alchemists of Old Fair sort of did this classic, delve too deep into the occult mysteries deal. There was a thinning that was catastrophically sundered, which destroyed the city. I go into a lot more detail about the setting of New Fair in this Lore of Candela Obscura video that I made, which I will link in the cards. Charlotte speaks with Donna, asking about acquiring some more special items and dropping the name Red Hand. And Donna says she does have a few things in stock and begins to escort her back to her office. As she does so though, she notices Arlo and she signals for a security guard.
Miss Black, I'm afraid you need to leave. And
Well, whatever
begins to
for.
turn you and push you towards the door.
Oh, I just love to look at art, is all.
It seems that Donna is enmeshed somehow with Red Hand, and I wonder if Eddie's involvement in that group and the disappearance is why she kicks Arlo out. Perhaps she knows something about it. I don't know, it was very curious, and I don't think it was really ever discussed why Arlo got kicked out. The guard also notices Auggie and his attire and throws him out too, and then Howard joins them outside. As they're trying to work out what to do...
What time is it? It's starting to get quite late.
Jesus, my God.
You hear this heavy
Dick.
explosion, some sort of a loud impact from the far end of the room. Everyone in the room just goes, what?
As the guests of the gallery all start screaming and running out of the building, Arlo, Auggie, and Howard rush back inside looking for Charlie. They see these heavy impacts hitting a door and they kick it open, finding a huge hole in one of the walls and a huge grey creature with many arms and many legs and many heads. It leaps back out of the hole, ripping its flesh in strips as it pushes through and rushes out into the night, leaving a smell of sewage behind it. Arlo and Howard chase after it while Auggie and Charlotte have a look over the room, finding a briefcase and black gloves with red stitching. Charlotte takes both of these items, which is very good because they come in handy later. As they leave, Charlotte feels one of these grey flesh worms trying to burrow into her skin, and this triggers a memory.
As it's going in, I feel myself almost like sucked into a memory, sucked into the past. And because we've just talked about what we talked about there, I'm standing in what looks like kind of an open field, and I'm starting to see a crack in the sky, like the sky was a painting. And feeling like a vacuum is sucking me towards it. And just as I start to go through it, I snap back. So it's terror, it's just completely discombobulating.
I love how all these different characters have these moments in their past where they first encountered the occult, and I'm really keen to know more about Charlotte's. It's sort of been alluded to so much, but we haven't really heard the full story. Meanwhile, Howard tails the creature out in the streets, and as he rounds a corner, he sees it turn to face him.
Right as you turn the corner and spin, you see this mass of like 7 or 8 arms in front of you, and you see multiple heads staring at you. 2 heads in particular that are facing each other, that kind of turn and face you. A woman's head and a man's head. as they both pull apart their bodies like a mouth. And you can see their torsos facing each other, like they were locked in the process of making love, and where their waists are, their hips are fused, and out of their bodies, these teeth have grown beyond their torsos and chest to form a massive crocodile-like mouth of flesh, as they both go...
Ew! This is clearly Onette and Wayland, which is so gross. The creature reaches out with its many, many arms and starts dragging Howard into its mouth. While he's being dragged, he takes out the vial the Lightkeeper gave them and pours its contents onto his brass knuckles and goes to punch, but an arm catches him and a face pushes out of the flesh, shrieking towards him, and he takes another brain injury, which, yes, fair.
My mind snaps. Absolutely beyond the realm of comprehension, and I believe I'm out.
You're out for this scene right now.
That was your fourth?
So, in Candela Obscura, when you take 4 bleed of a certain type, you are incapacitated and can no longer participate in that scene. Additionally, you gain a scar and you take a point from an action of your choice and move it to another action, mechanically reflecting how your character has changed with this brush, this very close brush with death. It's a really neat mechanic that I like a lot because, being taken out of a scene is somewhat punishing, but then you get to kind of rearrange your character's stats a little, which I think is really fun. Charlie and Auggie arrive and the creature rushes off with Donna half absorbed into it. Charlie races after it by herself and sees it going back into the sewer. She quickly opens the briefcase that she found in Donna's office, finding inside obsidian shards all arranged very neatly. She quickly pulls on the gloves that were with the briefcase and picks up 3 of the shards and hurls them at the creature. Whatever this substance is, it hurts the creature, and as it is writhing, Charlie sees the glowing green gem around the sort of Onette figure's neck, the absorbed Onette. It slams Charlie into a wall and disappears into the sewer. Arlo examines the grey flesh worm thingies using one of her abilities, Let Them In, and she senses an ancient hunger that just wants to feed and consume everything, and she also senses that it is scared. At this point, Howard comes back to consciousness, and because he gained a scar from his experience, Robbie describes what that looks like.
And he makes a small incision in the top of his own head, about 3 inches or so wide. Parts it with his fingers. Sets it back down. He pulls out a small handsaw with a crank, like a drill. It's got a circular drill bit in it. And he puts it on the top of his skull and just begins to crank.
Howard.
And crank.
Howard. What's he doing?
And
Is this
crank.
anything? Howard.
And you
course
sort
it's
of
not.
you sort of smell that powder, that earthy powder of bone mixed with blood. And then you just hear a and a tiny piece of his skull comes out, and he puts it inside of his surgery equipment, blinks his eye, squeezes his skin back together. It's bleeding pretty good. Puts his hat back on and says, well, sometimes you just have to expand your mind.
I'm gonna be real, I really hated that part and I've struggled to watch it, so we're just gonna move on. They climb down into the sewers to look for the creature, and Arlo pulls out a book of the occult to see if she can find any information on this creature, because the way equipment works in Candela Obscura is that you have 3 equipment slots, and you can decide at any time what equipment you brought with you to sort of play into that trope of the expert always having what they need at a given moment. Anyway, in this book, she finds an old fair legend where criminals were punished by being bound to a shard of Gredon, a demon of endless hunger. Arlo uses her bleed detector and they track the creature, hearing the sounds of voices crying out. They see the creature slowly pushing Donna into its body as she screams out. Auggie, still thinking about this musical connection, decides to sing Happy Birthday to it to catch its attention, which works. Charlotte throws the remaining shards into its mouth. It writhes in pain, and then it picks her up and slams her down again, knocking her out as she takes her 4th body. Auggie then takes out a handgun that he decided, or Ashley decided that he lifted from the periphery captain, and takes aim at the emerald inside its body.
An arm kind of falls off the side of it.
5.
That's a success. That's good. So you go ahead and fire. You watch as the emerald suddenly shatters across the torso.
Oh.
All the heads scream, and as the mouth clamps shut, It charges towards you and gets up into the chamber, filling the entryway of this.
Arlo takes off her glove and hurriedly draws some runes on the ground, performing a forbidden ritual. This is a feature that is not yet available in the quick start guide. I think we will probably see it when the full game comes out. Whatever its exact mechanics is though, using this feature does mean she will immediately take a scar, and she takes 1 point from sway and moves it into sense. Using this forbidden ritual, she bends the walls of the tunnel inward, closing in on the creature, and its body sort of begins to fall apart as the emerald that was powering it has shattered.
Until eventually it's just the two lovers left. As the arms reach out, both heads facing opposite directions kind of fold out towards you. And they look sad and scared. And they both look at each other. And you hear Onette's voice independently say, "I'm so sorry," to the face of Waylon. And they both just collapse there in the middle of this tunnel.
Auggie climbs through the squeezed tunnel and grabs Charlotte's unconscious form, and they all climb up out of the sewer. They make their way back to the Gilded Rainbow, lying Charlotte in a bed where she wakes up about 20 minutes later. At this point, they realize that they didn't get Donna, the owner of the art gallery, and they're not even sure if she survived. I hope that she did, because I've got some questions, because it's still a little unclear to me what actually happened here, right? So, Red Hand, perhaps Onette was disrupting their trade routes or something. So Red Hand gave this shard of Grendan to Dorna at the gallery. Did they do that in the hopes that Onette would buy it? And then when she bought it and indulged in her vice, it sort of activated and bound her to the necklace, creating this ravenous beast? Is that right? I don't know. Let me know what you think. It still felt like there were a few holes in the story that I didn't quite understand. V&V debrief with the Lightkeeper, who gets to work doing the cover-up and sort of clean up of the incident and gives them all some time to rest and recover. With the investigation closed, they do their post-game circle stuff, distributing their resources and gaining access to some new features. Howard, Charlie, and Auggie all take the refresh resource, which gives you back all of your resistances and drives. We see that play out sort of narratively, with Auggie going to Arlo's and taking a bubble bath, and Arlo then taking him shopping to buy him a new suit. Charlie goes to visit her mentor, Gertrude, who is a little clearer today and can speak with Charlie about what happened. We sort of get from context here that Gertrude has experienced herself with the occult and may even be a former member of Candela Obscura. It seems that she took Charlie in after Charlie's brush with the occult. And lastly, Howard goes home to his study and...
Small device on the corner. Looks technical, but in an old way. There's a little switch on the top, and he just flips it. And as he does this, sort of blue iridescent mist sort of starts to come out of it, but he doesn't pay any mind to it. And he grabs his pipe, he grabs his little box of tobacco. That mist starts to form behind him over his shoulder in this sort of featureless, but very clearly shape of a face. And he leans back, lights his pipe, takes a big hit, and says, "Well, Dean, into the unknown. Let's find Arlo's bow." And as he takes a big puff, that blue smoke goes straight into his newly panned head. His eyes go wide as saucers. And I guess the rest is up to your imagination.
Wait, what does this mean? And what is he breathing in? So many questions, which I hope get answered next week, because it is unfortunately our last week with these characters. I can't believe it. I'm so attached to them already. I feel like we've only just sort of scraped the surface, but I am also excited to learn who is going to be the game master for the next chapter of this series and who the players are. Hopefully they'll announce that next week. As always, let me know your theories and thoughts about this episode in the comments below, and make sure you check out what Bell's Hells have been up to recently with my latest recap right here. Bye!